Hello, Yele Nation. So I got a request to make the female blazer jacket pattern, and that is what I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to teach you how to make the blazer jacket and adding a touch of femininity by using the bust dart, to create that nice touch. So the first thing I'm going to do is to mark a 1-inch mark for my overlap and a 3-inch mark. So 1-inch mark here and another 3-inch mark. So the 1-inch mark is my button overlap, and I'm going to just draw a straight line, a 1-inch straight line all the way down my paper from the top to the bottom. Now bear in mind that if you are making a double-breasted jacket, you will not need a 1-inch line. Your button allowance will be about 2.5 inches if it is a double-breasted jacket, but this is just a single button jacket. It's not double-breasted. So I'm then going to measure my shoulder width divided by 2, and that gave me 7.5. I went down by 1 inch from that shoulder point, and then I drew my shoulder slant just like you are seeing me do. Now after drawing my shoulder slant, the next thing is to draw down the length of my armhole. If you've watched a lot of my videos, a lot of my pattern making videos, then you should be conversant with this process. It's like the basic bodice pattern process, but there are just a few tweaks because this is a blazer jacket. So to get the length of my armhole, it is usually the shoulder measurement divided by 2, then you add 0.5 inches to it. Because this is a jacket, you don't necessarily have to add 0.5 inches because you want the armhole to be tight. But if you don't want the armhole to be tight, add the 0.5 inches to it. Then I'm drawing an horizontal line across that and labeling that part as my chest line. Now after drawing my chest line, the next thing to draw will be my bust line, then my waistline, then the length of the jacket line. So the bust apex is 10 inches, that's my bust line. Then the waistline was 17 inches, and then the length of the jacket that I'm using is 26 inches for the front. Then I'm extending all my lines as you are seeing me do. I just extended my bust line. Now I'm extending my waistline, and lastly I'm going to extend the hip line, and I'm elongating it with my ruler as you are seeing me do. And then after all the whole elongations, I'm going to label all my lines so that there is no confusion. So the first line is chest, second line is bust, third line is waist, and the last line is hip. Then I measure out my bust circumference divided by 4, and my waist circumference divided by 4, and my hip circumference divided by 4, and those are the markings that I'm making on each of the lines, and it gave 9, 7.5, and 9.5. So on the waistline, I'm going to add just 1 inch for my dart. So after adding the 1 inch, I found the midpoint between the two lines, and I measured 0.5 inches on either side of that midpoint. And after that, I'm going to join all the lines together. So remember that I'm joining it to the new waistline, the one that I added extra 1 inch to. That's what I'm joining it to, not the 7.5 that I measured before. Now I'm going to elongate my midpoint, the midpoint that I calculated before, and then I'm going to join my darts 0.5 inches from the top of the bust point and about 1 to 0.5 inches above the hip line. So you are seeing my diamond shaped. I know you are not really seeing it because somehow this thing turns to slash line. I don't understand what happened. I'm so sorry. Jesus is Lord. And to think I just upgraded my camera. Anyhow, Sha, we will continue. We'll keep moving on. So on my bust line, I'm going up by 0.5 and 0.5 inches on either sides of the bust line, and I'm going to draw my bust dart. You see, the bust dart that I'm using here is very small compared to the one that I normally use, like on a basic bodice pattern or whatever other pattern that we have drawn in the past. So for the neckline, we are going to use a 3 inches by 3 inches neckline, and we're going to draw the neckline curve as you are seeing me do, and then I'm going to extend the line outside to my button area. And this is what your neckline should look like, 3 by 3. If the person is a bigger size, you can use a 3.5 by 3 just to create more space for the neck area. After doing that, we're going to check for our breaking point, that is the point where you want the lapel to open up. If you don't want it to open up too much, you can put it on the bust line, but I want it to open up at the waist so that the person can wear a camisole under it. So I'm just going to go up by 1 inch from my waistline and then draw the slant line to that mark 1 inch above my waistline, like that. And I'm going to elongate the line all the way above my neckline. You see the reason why I added the extra 6 inches at the top right now. So just bear that in mind when you are creating your pattern. Add extra inches at the top. So after doing that, I'm going to go to my elevated line, the slanted line that I drew before, and I'm going to measure about 3.5 inches. This 3.5 inches is representing my back neck curve. Then after measuring that, I'm going to go out by 0.5 inches from that side and then trace it to make my neckline again with a nice curve. Like it's not curvy, just a little bit curvy. All right. So after that, I'm going to take my nice T-square ruler or this triangle ruler. Anyhow, you know the name. And I'm going to draw a straight perpendicular line from that point. So the reason why I'm using that instrument is because it gives me a perfect perpendicular neckline and I don't have to guess where the slant is. So after that, I'm then going to measure how big I want my collar to be. If you want it to be 4 inches, 5 inches, you can increase it however you want, but I just use 3 inches because my client says she doesn't want a wide lapel. So after that, I'm going to go to the neckline, measure 1.5 inches at that point, slant my tape roll, and then measure another 1.5 inches. You can make it a smaller slant, you can make it a wider slant, it depends on you. I don't want the slant to be too wide, so I'm just going to take it like an angle of 90 degrees or something. You can use that the triangle ruler to get a nice slant if you want. So this is the slant that I'm going with, and it also measure 1.5 inches. When I measured the distance between the two of them, it was about 0.751 inch distance between the straight line at the curve and the slanted line that I put up. So I'm just going to straighten the line a little bit more because I drew with my free hand and it was scallopy, and I didn't want that. The Lord will save me from my scallopy and drawing one day. But right now, we're going to just keep pushing. Then I drew a curve from the 3 inches mark that I made at the collar top, and then I just merged it with the 1.5 inch slant line, and that is what I have now. So I'm going to erase the former straight line that I had before so I don't confuse you. This is the new straight line, the extra 0.5 that we curved out. That is the new collar line at the top. So this is our collar, very beautiful and very nice. I just measured 1 inch because that will be our fold mark. Like when you want to fold your collar, it will pass through that 1 inch mark. You will see it later when I cut out the collar or when I mark it out. So the next thing that I want to work on now is our armhole curve. So I'm going to go down 1 inch below the middle of the line and then go in by 0.75 to 1 inch and then draw a curve that hits it from the top to that 0.75 inch, then to the bust line. To the bust line. So I'm going to take it, you see the way I'm aligning my ruler, my curve ruler. I'm going to take it from that bust line, from the chest line point to the 0.75 all the way to the top, like that. And then we have our nice curve, we have our beautiful pattern. Now I'm going to then take my marker and trace out the collar so that you can see the collar parts more prominently. I wish I could use my marker throughout, but my marker was giving me issues. It was doing fade in, fade out, playing with my feelings, just playing with me. So I was conserving the marker ink for when it was absolutely necessary, because if I use it for the entire pattern process, it will fade out before the end of this video, and we all don't want that. You know what I'm saying? We are trying to manage resources here. We are trying to manage resources. So after shading out my neckline, then I'm going to find the midpoint of my shoulder. I'm going to mark that and draw like a princess seam line so to my bust so it's going to be like a shoulder seam princess line type thingy, just to add a nice effect to your jacket. So now I'm moving to the back pattern. I'm just going to draw a straight line to demarcate the front from the back pattern. The back pattern doesn't have a zipper because the back is closed up, so we're just going to measure 3 inches, 4.5 inches. The way we did the front pattern when we're drawing out the front pattern the all the 3 inches, 5 inches, the shoulder, armhole depth, and everything that we did for the front. I just repeated that process, and then now I'm just elongating my chest line, bust line, waistline from the front pattern. I'm elongating it all the way down. Now, one thing you need to understand is that for the front, we took out a 1 inch bust dart. Now, because we took out a 1 inch bust dart, the back pattern is going to be 1 inch shorter than the front. So the front was 26 inches, the back will be 25 inches, just because we are taking out that bust dart, because you want both of them to be exactly the same length. Now, as a result of that, I pushed my waist measurement up a little bit. So the front was 18 inches, so that means the back will be 17 inches, and the length will also be 1 inch. And I hope you get that. We have to make sure that the math align. If not, we'll have a very weird looking jacket, or you have problems sewing everything together. So now I'm going to measure 0.5 inches on the waistline, just to account for the waist slope, because you know that the waist goes in and comes out. It is not a straight line. After getting that 0.5, then from that mark, I'm going to measure my waist measurement, which is 7.5 inches. From the waist measurement, I'm going to still add 1 inch for the dart. I'm going to find the midpoint again, like I did for the front, and then elongate the line just like I did for the front. But this time around, I'm elongating the line to the chest line. It doesn't stop at the bust. Then I measure 0.5 inches on either side, and then from my chest line, not from my bust line, from my chest line, I then measure the dart to my I elongate the line to my dart area, and then 1 inch from my hip area, and that is how you get the dart for the back. Remember, you're starting from the chest line and not the bust line. So after this, I'm then going to draw my back slope that I mentioned before. I'm going to try to make it as natural as possible by placing your ruler on that mark till it fades naturally into the upper part of your bodies. And then from the 0.5 inch mark, I'm then going to extend it downwards to my hip line. So you see the way it fades up and then it fades down. I'm going to use my marker to make that part obvious as well. You see the way I'm trying to manage my marker. So I'm just trying to put it in the part that needs to be obvious. So you see the slant at that back. You see the way it slants up and slants back down. So from that particular slant is where I'm then going to measure my bust measurements, not from the original line, but from the slanted line. And then after measuring bust, I'm then going to join all my lines together, and then we are going to measure our neckline. For the neckline for the back, you go down by just 0.5 inches because you want it to be firm at the back of your neck. You don't want it to be gaping, and then you draw it to the 3 inch mark. I'm also then going to find the midpoint, add 1 inch, and then go in by just 0.5 inches. For the front, we went in by 0.75 to 1 inch, but for the back, you only go in by 0.5 inches from that armhole line. And then I'm going to join all my points together, the top to the 0.5 and then to the bust line. And then you can see that our back bodice is looking already nice and almost finished. You join the so I'm notching, or I'm marking the points that go together on the front and back pattern. And also we're going to also create the princess seam for the back as well, because the front already has the princess seam. We don't want the back to be lonely, so we are going to add princess seam for the back. Give the back a princess. Yes. And now we finished doing all of that. Our pattern is complete, is looking nice. I marked out all the obvious lines that we need to see with the marker. You see now my marker is useful. I saved it and it was enough. So after marking it out, I'm going to cut out the pattern, the way you are supposed to cut it out, because some people might have issues with knowing what to cut out and what not to cut out from the pattern onto your fabric. So I'm just going to cut it out and show you how to also cut out the dart area, which part of that you cut out and which part of the pattern you actually need on your fabric. I'm just going to do this for the front pattern because the back pattern is going to be pretty self-explanatory. And once you know how to cut the back, I'm sure I'm sure you know how to cut the back. So you remember the 1 inch mark that I took in as the fold point? That is exactly where I folded my lapel now, and you see that it is looking very nice and looking good. And I'm also going to cut out the notch part so that it is even more obvious how it's supposed to be. Now, if you are feeling lazy and you don't feel like cutting out the collar from this pattern, you can also decide not to cut out the collar from the pattern, but from nice ones that I've seen, they cut it out. I'm going to explain that even later on. So now I'm going to show you the part of the darts you are going to cut out to also be able to cut out the bust dart. So I'm going to cut out the bust dart as I see me do, place them together like so, and then sellotape them back together. My sellotape keep changing, but it is what it is. Whatever sellotape my hand lays on, we work with it. So that's how you close out your bust dart, and then you also cut out the other side of your dart like you see me do, like that. So you have these pieces, and these are the pieces that you cut out on your fabric. Now for your neckline, you can cut it out and add it in the collar. You can cut it out and add it again. For professional collars, I have seen that they always cut it out and then add it again. I don't know why they do that, but I think you should also cut it out and then add it again to your jacket or your blazer. So now we have the different darts, and I'm just notching the parts that needs to be joined together. It is obvious the parts that need to be joined together, as long as you follow your pattern and you notch it maybe with a chalk or with a marker, so you know which parts you are joining to what part. And you have the 3 pieces that you're going to cut out and sew again. Now if you want to see the process of me sewing this or joining all the pieces together, you can please leave a comment in the comment section. If I see up to 5 comments, let me reduce it up to 3 comments, 3 people asking me to show that process, I'm going to show it as my next week video. So if you really want it, please make sure that you put it in the comment section before next week, even before like Friday next week, so that I'll know that that's what I'm doing. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Till next time, bye.